L.A. Copen, Liz Copen. Welcome to Behind the Fiction.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. I'm starting to learn a bit about your books and the two different series. You've written more than that, but the two different series that we're going to be talking about in a couple of different episodes this week. We're going to get started by talking about the Lazarus Codex. You're publishing the 10th book in that series today. It's the 10th book in your series, but it's your first book with LMBPN. So we're introducing you to the LMBPN audience, and we want people to get a feel for you as an author and get a sense of what this series is. And we'll explain to people how they can get caught up after we talk for a bit about the series. So first, can you just kind of give us a little bit of a background on the series?
Yeah, the Lazarus Codex is about a sort of bumbling necromancer who falls into, he's already part of the supernatural world since he has his necromancy powers, but he sort of falls into the position as the Pale Horseman and becomes Death. And his job is to police the world of supernaturals, basically keep the balance between the gods, the fae, and humans so that nobody gets too powerful or nothing goes wrong. No wars are supposed to get started. He's not very good at his job, but he learns a lot as he goes.
All right, and as he goes, when you say as he goes, so we're at book 10 now. When did you publish the first book in this series?
The first book came out April 13th of 2018.
2018, so we are about, I'm not that great at math, maybe 16 months into the series, and this is book 10. That's, you write pretty fast.
I do.
And you have other things that you write, and we'll get into some of that. So the main character is Lazarus Kerrigan. He is, as you said, a bit of a bumbler. When I have heard the term necromancer for years, and I never knew what it was, and I actually looked it up before we started talking. So can you kind of explain to people who are like me exactly what a necromancer is? Because it sounds kind of creepy.
It sounds like somebody who just kind of like plays with dead things. And
yeah,
dead things actually creep Lazarus out really bad. Like, he hates to be in a room with dead bodies or roadkill or anything like that. But he draws his power from death and anything that's like the opposite of life. So he can talk to ghosts. He can see spirits. Later on, he sort of gains the ability to go between the world of the living and the world of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where he'll go back and forth between like earth and hell as he gains more power. But his necromancy is just basically being able to see and interact with ghosts and use them for power.
So is this the type of thing that you grew up reading, this type of like urban fantasy type thing? Or is this something new to you?
Oh, no, not at all. I grew up reading like Lord of the Rings, the big fat fantasy books.
Okay, all right.
If there was ever a necromancer in it, he was always the bad guy. And this kind of came from my frustration with that. It's like, why are they always the bad guy? They could actually do some good. And when the series starts out, he is basically running like a curio shop. He does tarot readings and seances. And some of it's kind of scammy. He's kind of a shady dude. But he still thinks he's providing a valuable service to people who are grieving and want some sort of closure that they wouldn't get any other way.
And is the setting for the entire series New Orleans?
Yes, with some very slight exceptions. There's one book that is only sort of set in New Orleans. It's more like the underworld of New Orleans. Like I said, he goes back and forth at one point between earth and hell, and about half of the book, maybe a little more, is actually set in the different underworlds that he visits.
Okay. Now, I did a little bit of research on you, and you and I have chatted before, but I never asked you where you were from. I am from Ohio, and Ohio is as far from New Orleans as you could possibly get, and I know that you've spent some time in Ohio.
Yeah, I lived all my life in Ohio until last year.
Okay.
And for most of my life, I had never actually left Ohio until about 2 years ago. I've never been to New Orleans, so I get people that say all the time, they'll say, well, you got that exactly right. Where are you from in New Orleans? I'm like, no, I've never been. I'm really good at using Google Maps.
Okay, so that's the secret.
That
And
is.
so are you doing like the street view and you're getting like a real sense of the area that you're able to describe in the books?
I do that, and then I listen to a lot of travel guides for the area. About 4 books in, I joined a Facebook group that was for locals and explained why I was there, and a couple of them have helped me out with some places where I got stuck or needed some local lore or something like that. So, yeah.
And you have still not been to New Orleans?
I still have not been, and by the time this series is done, I won't have had a chance to visit until after.
So this is book 10. I know that you're working on 11 now. Is that right?
Yep,
Among other things.
I'm about 15,000 words into it.
Okay, so for existing fans of yours who are listening to this and who are they can't wait to get their hands on Casting Shadows, just give a little bit of a preview of the storyline for this one, if you would.
Casting Shadows kind of comes after a little standalone novel that I released a little while ago called Master of Shadows. Now, that novel doesn't feature Lazarus, but it kind of tells a side story of Lazarus's daughter and what happened with the Shadow Fae. It picks up a story that's been kind of brewing in the background since the second book of the series. I've touched on it a little bit in book 6 and then a little bit in the last book. But it's kind of one of those where he's tying up some loose ends that he caused, but everything's kind of coming back to bite him in the ass right at once.
So how do you keep track of, for a long series, how do you keep track of the various open threads?
I've had really good editors. they catch it when I mess up. My husband keeps track of a lot of it for me because I can't keep it straight. And for whatever reason, he reads my unedited stuff and he'll tell me if, no, that's not right. You said in this chapter that this is how that worked. And then I have, beta readers and things like that. I've tried keeping track of it in like a Serious Bible or whatever, but I write so fast that I get ahead of myself and I'll be like, I'll go back in and fill it in later, and then I never do. So
one of the things that has amazed me with the work that I do at LMBPN is the way the fans of a series will remember the details much more so than the author.
Oh, absolutely. I love it when they come up to me and they're like, oh, well, I love how you did this thing and this detail. And I'm like, what book are you talking about again? I mean, for me, I'm working on the 11th book, so that's where my head is.
Right.
And I mean, I'll occasionally go back and I'll look at book 10 or book 6 or 2 or whatever I'm referencing. But like, one of the editors came to me the other day and asked me something about a crocodile or an alligator. And I'm like, I don't know which one it's supposed to be. Gosh, I wrote that like a year and a half ago.
That was so 18 months ago.
Exactly.
All right. So I mentioned earlier that we're going to have you back on at the end of the week for another episode of Behind the Fiction. And the reason for that is we're releasing this 10th book in the Lazarus Codex today. And then on Wednesday, there is a two-title volume of another series, Hellbent Halo, that's being released. And then you're releasing the 3rd book on Friday. So for our typical readers, buying 2 books on Wednesday and the 3rd book on Friday leaves them actually extra time for reading on Thursday. So can you give people just a quick preview? We're going to talk in detail about Hellbent Halo on the Friday show, but can you give people a quick preview of that series?
Yeah. Hellbent Halo actually got its start inside the Lazarus Codex. I needed an exorcist for a book, and this character just bullied his way really into existence. The main character of the Hellbent Halo series is Josiah Quinn. And he was supposed to be a Canadian with a dog. Instead, he decided he was going to be an Australian with a magical spider. So he has a very strong-willed personality.
Uh-huh.
He's sort of a John Constantine type character.
Uh-huh.
He's a chain-smoking half angel, so.
All right, and we will get into him in more detail on the Friday show, but on Monday, today, when this episode comes out, we've got Lazarus Kerrigan in book 10, which is Casting Shadows. On Wednesday, you can start getting caught up on the Hellbent Halo series with that two-title volume that we'll be releasing, and then on Friday, we'll be talking about the Hellbent Halo series in more detail, and we'll be talking about that specific book. Liz, thank you so much for being here. We will talk again soon.
Thank you.